Your pay will not stay secret for long. For years, pay has sat in that strange category of workplace topics that everyone feels, but very few people openly discuss. We have become comfortable talking about well-being, engagement, leadership, inclusion, and culture. But when it comes to pay, many organizations still prefer silence, ambiguity, and the hope that no one asks too many questions. That era is starting to close. What is changing across Europe, and increasingly here in the UK, is not simply a legal conversation about reporting. It is something much bigger than that. It is a shift in expectation around fairness, visibility, and whether employers can genuinely explain the decisions they make about reward. From reporting to real transparency, the UK is not starting from scratch. Gender pay gap reporting has been in place for years for larger employers, and equal pay protections have long existed in law. Employees also have certain protections when discussing pay in the context of discrimination. But despite that, many organisations are still operating in a culture where pay is only partially understood, inconsistently explained, and rarely spoken about with real confidence. What makes the current moment different is the direction of travel. Across the EU, the Pay Transparency Directive is pushing employers towards a much more open model. That includes salary ranges being visible earlier in the recruitment process, stronger rights for employees to understand how pay is set, and much more scrutiny where unjustified gaps exist. In the UK, while we are no longer bound by EU law, the signs are clear that government is exploring similar territory. The conversations taking place around salary ranges in job adverts, bans on asking candidates about salary history, ethnicity and disability pay reporting, and stronger action plans all point towards one thing. Pay transparency is moving from being an HR compliance topic to a much broader leadership issue. Once that happens, it stops being about publishing figures once a year and starts becoming about whether people trust the logic behind your pay decisions every day. Why employers should be paying attention. Now, in hospitality and service-led businesses especially, pay decisions are not always made in neat, controlled conditions. Roles are often filled under pressure. Managers negotiate to secure strong candidates. Counter-offers happen. Market pressures shift. Legacy decisions sit in the background for years. Over time, organizations can end up with pay arrangements that may have made sense in the moment, but no longer stand up well to scrutiny. I have seen this happen many times. Two people can be doing broadly similar work, but be paid differently for reasons that are poorly documented, inconsistently applied, or simply forgotten. Managers may sense that something is not quite right, but feel ill-equipped to explain the rationale clearly. HR teams are then left trying to bring order to decisions that were never built on a transparent framework in the first place. This is why the rise of pay transparency matters so much. It does not create inconsistency. It reveals it. It shines a light on the gaps between what organizations say they value and how those values show up in pay structures, progression opportunities, and recruitment decisions. That can feel uncomfortable, but it is also where progress begins. There is also a strong commercial reality here. Candidates increasingly expect salary clarity. Employees want to understand how progression works. Teams are more willing than ever to challenge perceived unfairness. In that environment, opacity does not protect trust. It erodes it. Organizations that continue to rely on vague wording, quiet assumptions, or outdated secrecy clauses may find that they look less credible, not more. The pressure points that will surface first. The first challenge for many employers will be the legacy of past decisions. Historic pay arrangements often carry hidden risks because they were shaped by context rather than principle. Once transparency increases, those decisions need to be explained. If they cannot be explained, they begin to look arbitrary. The second pressure point is role clarity. If organizations are going to talk more openly about equal work or work of equal value, they need to be much clearer about how roles are defined, compared, and assessed. This is not just a legal exercise, it is an organizational discipline. Without that clarity, reward structures become much harder to defend. The third pressure point is management capability. This is the one I think many organisations are underestimating. Most managers have not been taught how to talk about pay in a clear, calm, confident way. They may be very good operational leaders, people leaders, or commercial leaders, but still feel deeply uncomfortable when someone asks why a colleague is paid more, how a pay band works, or what is required to progress. In a more transparent environment, those questions will come more often, not less. Here are some of the areas that are most likely to come under the spotlight first. Historic pay differences that were never properly reviewed, inconsistent approaches to starting salaries across similar roles, weak documentation behind pay and progression decisions, unclear definitions of equal value across functions or job families, line managers lacking confidence in reward conversations. None of this is theoretical. These are the real operational pressure points that sit underneath the wider policy debate. What good organisations will do before they are forced to the most effective response is not to wait for legislation to make every requirement explicit. By the time that happens, the organisations that are prepared will already be ahead. They will have done the deeper work of understanding where their risks are, where their inconsistencies sit, and how ready their leaders are to deal with more open conversations about pay. This starts with honesty. Employers need to look at their pay structures not just through a compliance lens, but through a credibility lens. Can they explain how starting salaries are set? Can they articulate how pay progression works? Can they point to objective criteria rather than habit, urgency, or negotiation strength? Can they show that differentials are justified and understood? It also requires cultural maturity. Pay transparency will not feel comfortable in every organisation straight away. In some workplaces, it will bring tension, difficult questions, and a degree of challenge. But that is not necessarily a sign that transparency is failing. Often, it is a sign that people are finally able to ask questions they have held privately for years. Leaders who respond with clarity and openness will build trust. Leaders who react defensively will weaken it. There are some practical steps that employers can and should take now. Review current pay structures and identify any unexplained inconsistencies. Revisit recruitment practices, especially around salary history and salary range visibility. Strengthen job architecture. And the rationale behind role comparisons, remove or update outdated wording in contracts, policies, and handbooks. Train managers to handle pay conversations with confidence and consistency. Prepare clear narrative explanations around pay, progression, and reward philosophy. None of this requires waiting for a legal deadline. It requires leadership attention, organisational honesty, and a willingness to recognise that pay is no longer something most employers will be able to keep vague for very much longer. This is really about trust. The most important thing to understand is that pay transparency is not simply about numbers. It is about trust. It is about whether employees believe decisions are fair, whether candidates feel respected, and whether leaders can stand behind the systems they operate. In many ways, this is where the conversation becomes less legal and more human. People do not expect every workplace to be perfect. They do not expect every organisation to have closed every gap overnight. But they do expect clarity, consistency, and evidence that unfairness is being taken seriously. They expect employers to know how decisions are made and to explain them with confidence. That is why I believe this moment matters. Transparency will expose weak logic, poor habits, and unexplained disparities. But it also creates an opportunity. Organisations that respond well can strengthen trust, improve their employer reputation, and create reward frameworks that are far more defensible and far more human. In a labour market where fairness matters deeply, that is not just good governance, it is good leadership. In a nutshell, pay transparency is coming, but this is not just a story about legal reform. It is a story about expectation, credibility, and whether organisations can explain how reward decisions are made. The employers that treat this as a reporting exercise will miss the point entirely. The ones that see it as a leadership issue, a culture issue, and a trust issue will be in a much stronger position.
Redundancy is a leadership test. Large-scale redundancies are never easy, but the way they are handled often reveals far more about leadership than the decision itself. The recent collapse of BrewDog and the way hundreds of employees were informed that their jobs had ended has triggered a wider conversation across the hospitality industry. For leaders, the story raises important questions about communication, responsibility, and how organizations treat their people when the pressure is highest. Last week, the hospitality industry watched an uncomfortable story unfold as news emerged about the collapse of BrewDog and the way hundreds of employees were told they had lost their jobs. Nearly 500 staff were informed of their redundancy during a short conference call after receiving only 25 minutes notice that the meeting would take place. Within 15 minutes, employees were told that dozens of bars would close, their roles would end immediately, and the business had entered administration. For the employees involved, the experience was deeply distressing and confusing. Trade unions quickly described the situation as one of the worst redundancy processes they had witnessed in the sector, while employment lawyers began questioning whether the required consultation processes had been properly followed. The story traveled quickly across the hospitality community, prompting a wider debate about leadership behavior and organizational responsibility during times of crisis. Redundancies are sometimes unavoidable in hospitality. Economic conditions shift, operating costs rise, and organizations occasionally reach a point where restructuring becomes necessary in order to survive. The real leadership question is therefore not whether redundancies happen, but how they are handled when they do. The moment that defines leadership. Every organization eventually faces moments where difficult decisions must be made about cost, structure, or survival. When those moments arrive, leadership behavior becomes highly visible to employees and to the wider industry. People rarely judge organizations solely by their financial decisions, but they do remember how those decisions were communicated and experienced. Across more than 3 decades working in hospitality organizations across Australia, Europe, the United States, and the United Kingdom, I have seen redundancy processes handled in very different ways. Some were conducted with care, transparency, and preparation. Others were rushed and transactional, leaving employees feeling shocked, confused, and discarded. In practice, organizations tend to fall into 3 recognizable patterns when navigating redundancy situations. Treating redundancy primarily as a legal compliance exercise where the focus is on process rather than people. Delaying communication until the final moment, leaving employees feeling blindsided and uncertain. Managing the situation with openness and respect, recognizing that these moments are deeply human experiences. The difference between these approaches rarely comes down to financial reality alone. More often, it reflects the leadership mindset guiding the organization at the time. Why communication matters more than leaders realize. When redundancy decisions are handled poorly, the immediate damage is obvious for the employees who lose their roles. However, the deeper and often longer-lasting impact is felt by employees who remain in the organization after the restructuring. Those individuals watch closely how their colleagues are treated during moments of crisis, and the conclusions they draw can shape organizational culture for years. If the process appears rushed, impersonal, or unfair, employees begin to question whether the organization genuinely values its people. Trust can erode quietly but steadily, and engagement levels often decline as individuals become more cautious about their own future within the organization. In hospitality environments where teamwork and service culture are essential, that shift in mindset can have real operational consequences. Leaders who handle these moments well tend to focus on a few practical principles. Communicating honestly about the pressures facing the business rather than hiding behind corporate language. giving employees time and space to ask questions and understand what happens next. Providing clarity about pay, benefits, and practical next steps. Delivering difficult messages with empathy and respect. None of these actions removes the pain of redundancy. However, they ensure that employees leave the organization with dignity and with a clearer understanding of why the decision was made.
Legal compliance alone, however, should never be viewed as the benchmark for leadership behavior. Organizations may technically meet statutory requirements while still damaging their culture and reputation if the process lacks transparency, empathy, or care. The real lesson for hospitality leaders. The 𝗟𝗆 situation will continue to unfold over the coming months as administrators manage the remaining assets and affected employees explore their options. There may be legal challenges and further scrutiny of the decisions that led to the collapse. Regardless of the final outcome, the wider hospitality industry can draw an important lesson from this moment. Leadership is often tested most clearly during periods of uncertainty. When times are good, organizations can speak confidently about culture, values, and employee engagement. When times become difficult, employees look closely at whether those values genuinely guide leadership decisions. Hospitality businesses depend heavily on trust, relationships, and reputation. The way employees are treated during difficult moments becomes part of the story people tell about an organization long after the restructuring is complete. That story can either strengthen the organization's reputation or quietly undermine it. For leaders across the industry, the 𝗟𝗆 story is a reminder that difficult decisions are part of business. However, the way those decisions are communicated will always shape how leadership is remembered. In a nutshell, the 𝗟𝗆 story highlights that redundancy is not simply a financial decision. It is a leadership moment that shapes how employees experience an organization and how the industry remembers it. 3 lessons stand out for hospitality leaders. Difficult decisions should always be communicated with honesty and respect. Legal compliance is essential, but empathy and dignity matter just as much. Employees who remain will judge leadership by how their colleagues were treated. Redundancies may sometimes be unavoidable, but the way they are handled is always a choice.
The discipline of calm. This week reminded me of something I have learned, forgotten and relearned many times over 3 decades in hospitality and global organizations. Calm is not personality. It is not something reserved for those who are naturally unflappable. Calm in leadership is discipline. There are moments when everything feels slightly unsettled, not catastrophic, not career-defining, just off rhythm. A supplier issue that lingers longer than expected. A platform glitch that appears at precisely the wrong time. A delayed response that creates ambiguity. A decision sitting just outside your direct control. None of it is dramatic in isolation, yet collectively enough to test your composure. In those moments, instinct is rarely your ally. The body reacts before the brain does. You want immediate clarity. You want reassurance. You want visible correction. What begins as urgency can quietly morph into emotion, and emotion, when amplified by authority, travels further than you intend. Hospitality leaders should understand this better than most. Hotels are emotional ecosystems. Energy moves quickly across a property. If a general manager tightens their tone in a morning briefing, the front office feels it before midday. If a senior leader sends a string of escalating emails, HR absorbs the tension long before the issue itself is resolved. If a head of department displays visible frustration, guests will sense the shift in atmosphere before anyone explains what has happened. Research into emotional contagion consistently demonstrates that leaders' moods ripple through teams, influencing engagement, judgment, and performance. We do not merely manage operations, we regulate climate. The steadiness or volatility of our response shapes how others interpret risk. That is why calm is not softness, it is containment. The most effective leaders I have worked with across London, Sydney, Palm Springs, and now in global roles, understood something subtle but powerful. They recognized that not every disruption requires a visible reaction. They knew that authority is strengthened, not weakened, by measured response. They practiced restraint when others expected display. Over time, I have noticed 3 disciplines that separate reactive leaders from composed ones. 1. They separate urgency from importance. When something wobbles, adrenaline whispers that it must be fixed immediately and publicly. The discomfort of uncertainty feels intolerable. Yet disciplined leaders pause long enough to interrogate the nature of the issue. Is this reputationally material? Is it operationally damaging? Or is it simply uncomfortable? Discomfort often disguises itself as a crisis. A delayed reply can feel like disrespect. A technical issue can feel like incompetence. A misalignment can feel like a loss of control. But not every irritation warrants escalation. When leaders respond to discomfort as though it were an existential threat, they introduce instability that did not previously exist. Strategic calm requires diagnostic thinking. What is the real risk here? What is the probable outcome? What is actually within my influence? That brief internal audit often significantly reduces the temperature. It allows you to respond with proportion rather than impulse. 2. They manage emotional contagion consciously. Leaders underestimate how closely they are observed. Teams notice cadence, punctuation, pacing, and even silence. They interpret micro-signals and build narratives around them. In high-pressure environments such as hotels, those narratives form quickly and spread quickly. I have seen composed executives walk through operational storms and steady entire properties simply through presence. They asked clear questions, sought data, held to standards, yet their tone never suggested panic. I have also seen minor issues escalate into cultural tremors because a senior leader's anxiety leaked into every exchange. Calm does not mean denial. It means sequencing. You can investigate thoroughly without performing alarm. You can hold suppliers accountable without broadcasting frustration. You can pursue clarity without amplifying fear. Authority grows when steadiness is visible and consistent. 3. They focus on the circle of influence. There will always be variables outside our control. Technology platforms behave unpredictably. External partners operate on different timelines. Markets fluctuate. Human error occurs. Systems fail in ways that defy logic. The illusion of total control tempts leaders into agitation disguised as diligence. This weekend, if something in your world feels slightly misaligned, pause before you react. Ask yourself whether you are responding to genuine risk or to personal discomfort. Consider the message your tone will send beyond the issue itself. Reflect on what is within your control and what is not. The discipline of calm is rarely dramatic. It is rarely applauded in the moment, yet it is one of the most powerful strategic choices a leader can make. In a world that rewards volume and speed, restraint remains deeply underrated. In a nutshell, calm is not personality. It is leadership discipline. It requires you to separate urgency from importance before you respond. It requires you to manage emotional contagion consciously. It requires you to focus on your circle of influence rather than chasing every variable. Your team will not remember every operational detail. They will remember how you made them feel when things were uncertain. Steadiness under pressure builds credibility faster than visible intensity ever will. Hiring wake-up call. Welcome to Winkwire. Most hotels think their hiring is fine, until the results scream otherwise. In this chapter, we're exposing why speed in hiring doesn't equal quality, and why filling gaps without strategy is costing you more than you realize. By the end of this part, you'll know how to hire not just for today, but for the legacy of your brand. Why people and culture is the new HR. The landscape of work is rapidly evolving. What we used to know as human resources is evolving into something far more dynamic: people and culture. This shift isn't just about rebranding, it's about rethinking how we approach the entire employee experience. For an extended period, the perception of HR as a function primarily concerned with policies, compliance, and operational efficiency has persisted. While those things are still important, modern HR, or should I say, people and culture, is about creating an environment where people actually want to come to work. It's about seeing employees as individuals, not resources to be managed. Why the change matters. Let's be honest, viewing employees as resources never really sat well, did it? The world of work has moved on, and so have people's expectations. Today, employees want to be valued, listened to, and given opportunities to grow. They want a positive workplace culture, one that doesn't just talk about values, but actually lives them. The global pandemic caused significant disruptions, compelling organizations to reevaluate all operations, from communication strategies to employee support. Many businesses discovered that the outdated HR approach was no longer practical. People needed empathy, flexibility, and support, things that can't be boiled down to policies and procedures alone. And here's the kicker. Businesses that didn't adapt were left behind. Those that embraced a people-first approach, they're the ones thriving. What does people and culture look like? So, what does this new way of thinking actually look like in practice? It's about shifting the focus from managing employees to creating environments where they can thrive. It's about recognizing that culture isn't just a set of statements on a website, but something that's lived and breathed every day. Here are the key areas where people and culture is making waves. Employee engagement and well-being. It's not enough to simply ask how people are doing. You need to show you care. This means building a culture that supports mental health, encourages open dialogue, and celebrates achievements. Leadership development. The days of promoting someone just because they're technically competent are over. Today's leaders need to inspire, connect, and empathize. Developing those soft skills is non-negotiable. Diversity and inclusion. This isn't just about ticking boxes. It's about creating a workplace where everyone feels they belong. Inclusive cultures are more innovative, resilient, and ultimately more successful. Employer brand and retention. Your brand isn't just your logo. It's how your employees talk about you when you're not in the room. Investing in your people means they'll invest in you, stick around, and do their best work. Data-driven insights. We can't ignore the power of data. Organizations can make more intelligent, more human decisions by using analytics to understand what people want and need. Learning from experience. Why separating culture from HR doesn't work. In one of my recent consulting engagements, I worked with a company that decided to separate culture from HR and place it within a different part of the organization. The idea was to create a distinct focus on culture while letting HR concentrate on operational processes. Unfortunately, the reality didn't match the intention. Without integrating culture within the people function, the result was a fragmented approach, where culture initiatives lacked the alignment needed to influence day-to-day employee experiences. The separation created confusion, inconsistencies, and a lack of ownership over cultural development. This experience reinforced my belief that culture and people practices must be interconnected. Trying to address culture in isolation from HR means losing the opportunity to embed values into every touchpoint, from recruitment to performance management. Culture needs to be lived, not just discussed, and HR is best placed to ensure it happens. The role of HR in leading the change transforming HR into people and culture isn't an overnight process. It requires commitment from leadership and buy-in from employees. Crucially, it needs HR to step up as champions of change. We can't just communicate the new culture. We need to build, model, and embed it in every part of the business. That means aligning policies, performance metrics, and leadership behaviors with the culture you want to see. It's about moving away from the top-down approach and creating space for employees to have a voice. It's about making culture a lived experience rather than a corporate statement. Practical tips for getting it right. If you're thinking about making the shift from HR to people and culture, here are 3 things you can start doing today. Integrate culture into everyday practices. Don't just talk about culture, embed it in policies, performance reviews, and leadership behaviors. Make it part of everyday conversations. Support leaders in living the culture. Equip managers with the skills they need to lead with empathy and resilience. Run workshops, provide coaching, and hold them accountable for living the culture. Measure what matters. Track how people feel about their work, team, and organization. Use employee feedback to shape your culture strategy continuously. Embracing the future. The shift from HR to people and culture is more than just a name change. It's a fundamental rethink of how we support our people. It's about creating workplaces where employees don't just survive, they thrive. If we get this right, the benefits are clear. Happier employees, stronger teams, and a more resilient organization. But it takes commitment, honesty, and a willingness to challenge the old ways of doing things. The good news? We're already on the right path. By embracing this new mindset and leading with empathy and purpose, we can create workplaces in which people genuinely love being a part. It's time to let go of old school HR and build cultures that inspire, empower, and endure. Are you ready to make the change? Keeping staff training records up to date, a game changer for hoteliers. Running a hotel is a bit like orchestrating a symphony. Every team member, from front desk staff to housekeeping, plays a crucial role in delivering a seamless guest experience. But here's a truth that often gets overlooked. The key to harmony lies in keeping staff training records up to date. Far from being a tedious administrative task, maintaining accurate training records is a game changer. It's about empowering your team to perform their best, meeting compliance requirements, and building a culture of continuous learning. Why training records matter. Imagine this scenario. A guest with severe allergies asks about menu options, and your server confidently provides a solution thanks to updated allergen training. Or perhaps a surprise safety audit takes place, and your training records demonstrate that every employee is certified and ready for emergencies. These aren't just examples of good management. They're the result of prioritizing training and record keeping. Updated training records reflect your commitment to service excellence and employee development. More than that, they create a foundation for a culture where staff are engaged, confident, and capable. But here's the catch. Training isn't a one-and-done exercise. An industry as dynamic as hospitality needs to evolve constantly, just like your team. Rethinking training for hotels. Let's face it, traditional approaches to training don't cut it anymore. One-size-fits-all programs and tick-the-box records belong in the past. If you want a team that truly thrives, you need to rethink your strategy. 1. Focus on purpose, not just compliance. While compliance is non-negotiable, training should go further. Think about what truly helps your staff excel. Does your housekeeping team understand the latest eco-friendly cleaning techniques? Can your front desk staff manage demanding guests with ease? Purposeful training addresses real-world challenges and equips your team to shine. 2. Make continuous improvement. The norm, training isn't a one-time event. It's a journey. Embed it into the day-to-day operations of your hotel. Regular refreshers, skills workshops, and professional development opportunities keep your team sharp and motivated. 3. Personalized learning. Every employee brings unique skills and goals to the table, so why treat their training the same? Tailor your approach to individual roles and aspirations. A concierge might need advanced customer service training, while a chef may benefit from workshops on dietary trends. Personalization makes training relevant and meaningful. Practical tips for maintaining training records. While rethinking your approach to training is essential, maintaining up-to-date records is where it all comes together. Here's how to stay on top of it without being overwhelmed. Build a system that works. Start with a system that suits your needs. Whether it's a cloud-based learning management system, LMS, or a simple spreadsheet, the goal is to centralize and simplify. Capture key details like training dates, topics covered, certifications earned, and feedback. Use technology. Gone are the days of dusty file cabinets. Embrace apps and software to track training progress, automate reminders, and flag upcoming certifications. This saves time and helps you quickly identify gaps or overdue sessions. Regularly review and refresh training records are only helpful if they're current. Schedule regular reviews to audit your records, identify gaps, and update expired certifications. This isn't just about compliance, it's about ensuring your team stays ready for anything. Foster a learning culture. Your team should see training as an opportunity, not a chore. Celebrate milestones, share success stories, and involve staff in shaping future training. When learning becomes part of your culture, record keeping becomes second nature. The big picture, a culture of excellence. Keeping staff training records current is more than an operational necessity. It's a step towards building a culture of excellence. When meaningful training is embedded in your hotel's ethos, it empowers your team to go above and beyond. The benefits? Guests who leave glowing reviews, a team that takes pride in their work, and a hotel that stands out in a competitive market. It's not just about records, it's about creating a workplace where everyone thrives. Signs you're on the right track. How do you know your efforts are paying off? Here are some indicators. Happier guests. Exceptional service leads to positive reviews and repeat bookings. Compliance confidence. Inspections and audits become stress-free when your records are in order. Engaged employees. A team that feels supported and valued is likelier to stay loyal and motivated. Final thoughts. Maintaining up-to-date training records might not sound glamorous, but it's vital to running a successful hotel. By focusing on purposeful training, leveraging technology, and fostering a learning culture, you're setting your team and your business up for long-term success. Remember, the effort you invest in your staff today will pay dividends in guest satisfaction, operational excellence, and team morale. So, what are you waiting for? It's time to take training records from a chore to a competitive advantage. Carl Wood is a senior HR leader with over 25 years of global experience spanning hospitality, HR transformation, and leadership development. Passionate about creating thriving workplaces, Carl shares practical insights to help organizations tackle real-world challenges. Your pay will not stay secret for long. For years, pay has sat in that strange category of workplace topics that everyone feels, but very few people openly discuss. We have become comfortable talking about well-being, engagement, leadership, inclusion, and culture. But when it comes to pay, many organizations still prefer silence, ambiguity, and the hope that no one asks too many questions. That era is starting to close. What is changing across Europe and increasingly here in the UK is not simply a legal conversation about reporting. It is something much bigger than that. It is a shift in expectation around fairness, visibility, and whether employers can genuinely explain the decisions they make about reward. From reporting to real transparency, the UK is not starting from scratch. Gender pay gap reporting has been in place for years for larger employers, and equal pay protections have long existed in law. Employees also have certain protections when discussing pay in the context of discrimination. But despite that, many organisations are still operating in a culture where pay is only partially understood, inconsistently explained, and rarely spoken about with real confidence. What makes the current moment different is the direction of travel. Across the EU, the Pay Transparency Directive is pushing employers towards a much more open model. That includes salary ranges being visible earlier in the recruitment process, stronger rights for employees to understand how pay is set, and much more scrutiny where unjustified gaps exist. In the UK, while we are no longer bound by EU law, the signs are clear that government is exploring similar territory. The conversations taking place around salary ranges in job adverts, bans on asking candidates about salary history, ethnicity and disability pay reporting, and stronger action plans all point towards one thing: pay transparency is moving from being an HR compliance topic to a much broader leadership issue. Once that happens, it stops being about publishing figures once a year and starts becoming about whether people trust the logic behind your pay decisions every day. Why employers should be paying attention. Now, in hospitality and service-led businesses especially, pay decisions are not always made in neat, controlled conditions. Roles are often filled under pressure. Managers negotiate to secure strong candidates. Counter-offers happen. Market pressures shift. Legacy decisions sit in the background for years. Over time, organizations can end up with pay arrangements that may have made sense in the moment, but no longer stand up well to scrutiny. I have seen this happen many times. Two people can be doing broadly similar work, but be paid differently for reasons that are poorly documented, inconsistently applied, or simply forgotten. Managers may sense that something is not quite right, but feel ill-equipped to explain the rationale clearly. HR teams are then left trying to bring order to decisions that were never built on a transparent framework in the first place. This is why the rise of pay transparency matters so much. It does not create inconsistency. It reveals it. It shines a light on the gaps between what organizations say they value and how those values show up in pay structures, progression opportunities, and recruitment decisions. That can feel uncomfortable, but it is also where progress begins. There is also a strong commercial reality here. Candidates increasingly expect salary clarity. Employees want to understand how progression works. Teams are more willing than ever to challenge perceived unfairness. In that environment, opacity does not protect trust. It erodes it. Organizations that continue to rely on vague wording, quiet assumptions, or outdated secrecy clauses may find that they look less credible, not more. The pressure points that will surface first. The first challenge for many employers will be the legacy of past decisions. Historic pay arrangements often carry hidden risks because they were shaped by context rather than principle. Once transparency increases, those decisions need to be explained. If they cannot be explained, they begin to look arbitrary. The second pressure point is role clarity. If organizations are going to talk more openly about equal work or work of equal value, they need to be much clearer about how roles are defined, compared, and assessed. This is not just a legal exercise, it is an organizational discipline. Without that clarity, reward structures become much harder to defend. The third pressure point is management capability. This is the one I think many organizations are underestimating. Most managers have not been taught how to talk about pay in a clear, calm, confident way. They may be very good operational leaders, people leaders, or commercial leaders, but still feel deeply uncomfortable when someone asks why a colleague is paid more, how a pay band works, or what is required to progress. In a more transparent environment, those questions will come more often, not less. Here are some of the areas that are most likely to come under the spotlight first. Historic pay differences that were never properly reviewed, inconsistent approaches to starting salaries across similar roles, weak documentation behind pay and progression decisions, unclear definitions of equal value across functions or job families, line managers lacking confidence in reward conversations. None of this is theoretical. These are the real operational pressure points that sit underneath the wider policy debate. What good organizations will do before they are forced to the most effective response is not to wait for legislation to make every requirement explicit. By the time that happens, the organizations that are prepared will already be ahead. They will have done the deeper work of understanding where their risks are, where their inconsistencies sit, and how ready their leaders are to deal with more open conversations about pay. This starts with honesty. Employers need to look at their pay structures not just through a compliance lens, but through a credibility lens. Can they explain how starting salaries are set? Can they articulate how pay progression works? Can they point to objective criteria rather than habit, urgency, or negotiation strength? Can they show that differentials are justified and understood? It also requires cultural maturity. Pay transparency will not feel comfortable in every organization straight away. In some workplaces, it will bring tension, difficult questions, and a degree of challenge. But that is not necessarily a sign that transparency is failing. Often, it is a sign that people are finally able to ask questions they have held privately for years. Leaders who respond with clarity and openness will build trust. Leaders who react defensively will weaken it. There are some practical steps that employers can and should take now. Review current pay structures and identify any unexplained inconsistencies. Revisit recruitment practices, especially around salary history and salary range visibility. Strengthen job architecture. And the rationale behind role comparisons. Remove or update outdated wording in contracts, policies, and handbooks. Train managers to handle pay conversations with confidence and consistency. Prepare clear narrative explanations around pay, progression, and reward philosophy. None of this requires waiting for a legal deadline. It requires leadership attention, organizational honesty, and a willingness to recognize that pay is no longer something most employers will be able to keep vague for very much longer. This is really about trust. The most important thing to understand is that pay transparency is not simply about numbers. It is about trust. It is about whether employees believe decisions are fair, whether candidates feel respected, and whether leaders can stand behind the systems they operate. In many ways, this is where the conversation becomes less legal and more human. People do not expect every workplace to be perfect. They do not expect every organization to have closed every gap overnight. But they do expect clarity, consistency, and evidence that unfairness is being taken seriously. They expect employers to know how decisions are made and to explain them with confidence. That is why I believe this moment matters. Transparency will expose weak logic, poor habits, and unexplained disparities. But it also creates an opportunity. Organizations that respond well can strengthen trust, improve their employer reputation, and create reward frameworks that are far more defensible and far more human. In a labor market where fairness matters deeply, that is not just good governance, it is good leadership. In a nutshell, pay transparency is coming, but this is not just a story about legal reform. It is a story about expectation, credibility, and whether organizations can explain how reward decisions are made. The employers that treat this as a reporting exercise will miss the point entirely. The ones that see it as a leadership issue, a culture issue, and a trust issue will be in a much stronger position. If you want to work with me, contact me at carl@ winckhr.uk or search winckhr.uk for more information. Consistency is the culture. Earlier this week, the BBC reported concerns raised by senior managers at the Co-op about a deteriorating leadership culture at the executive level. The organisation has publicly rejected that characterisation, and it is not for external observers to determine the accuracy of those claims. What the story does offer, however, is a timely reminder of how quickly alignment between stated values and lived behaviour can become fragile. When an organisation with a proud ethical heritage and clearly articulated values begins to face allegations of fear, alienation, and declining morale, the issue is rarely a single decision. It is more often a pattern that has developed over time. Culture rarely fractures overnight. It drifts gradually when consistency weakens. For those of us leading people and culture in hospitality, that distinction matters deeply. We operate in an industry where brand promise and lived experience must align every single day. Guests quickly notice the gap between what is marketed and what is delivered, and colleagues are no different. Guests remember patterns. Employees do too. In hospitality, intensity can be compelling. A spectacular refurbishment, a bold new concept, or a decisive leadership announcement can generate energy and momentum. These moments matter, and they often signal ambition. Yet loyalty is rarely built on intensity alone. Guests return because they know what to expect, and they trust the standards will be upheld consistently. They may forgive a delayed cocktail on a busy evening, but they struggle when service feels unpredictable from one visit to the next. Inside organizations, culture follows the same logic. Employees do not measure leadership by the annual strategy presentation or the tone of a carefully scripted speech. They measure it by repeated experience, especially in moments that feel uncomfortable or uncertain. When someone challenges a proposal in a meeting, how is that challenge received? When two employees present similar cases, are they treated in similar ways? When a difficult operational decision is made, is the rationale explained consistently across teams? These repeated interactions shape culture far more than any framed values statement. If the response varies dramatically depending on personality, pressure, or hierarchy, culture begins to wobble. Predictability in leadership behavior builds psychological safety over time. Without that predictability, even capable and committed teams begin to withdraw, where inconsistency quietly erodes trust. It is tempting to attribute inconsistency to individuals. One leader is stronger than another, one department is more disciplined, or one property simply performs better. In reality, inconsistency is often structural rather than personal. In hospitality environments, inconsistency commonly emerges through patterns such as onboarding that overwhelms new starters with information but provides limited practical reinforcement, leadership teams without explicit norms around how disagreement and challenge should be handled, policies that are technically robust but open to wide interpretation in day-to-day application, managers promoted for operational strength without equal investment in people, leadership capability. When clarity is missing, behavior fills the gap. Under pressure, personality becomes the dominant influence rather than a shared principle. That is when unpredictability begins to surface in tone, decision-making, and communication. The commercial consequences are rarely immediate, but cumulative. Experienced colleagues begin to leave, morale softens, and informal conversations become more guarded. Service quality fluctuates subtly before it becomes visibly inconsistent, and guest feedback begins to reflect what culture has already signaled internally. Research across customer journeys consistently demonstrates that removing inconsistency can lift revenue and reduce cost to serve. Reliability builds confidence, and confidence drives repeat behavior. The same dynamic applies to employees, who are more likely to stay and contribute fully when they experience fairness and predictability. Designing for reliability. Rather than intensity under pressure, intensity can feel like leadership. Bold restructuring, strong messaging, and high-impact initiatives can signal control and decisiveness. However, organizations are not sustained by moments alone. They are sustained by patterns of behavior that remain steady over time. Consistency is not a personality trait that some leaders happen to possess. It is a design decision that must be embedded into governance, communication rhythms, and policy architecture. Without intentional design, intensity can easily overshadow stability. A leadership reflection. The 𝗣𝗶𝘆 story serves as a timely reminder that alignment between values and behavior cannot be assumed. Organizations with long histories and strong reputations are not immune to drift. Guests remember patterns, not peaks. Employees do too. In hospitality leadership, culture is not built through occasional brilliance. It is built through reliable habit, reinforced day after day.